Okay, so here's what happened. On February 4th, Representative Stephen Lynch from Massachusetts, a former ironworker who's now the ranking member of the Digital Assets and AI Subcommittee, confronted Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent at a House Financial Services Committee hearing about two things. First, the Trump administration's decision to immediately dismiss more than 100 enforcement actions against financial firms when they took office. And second, the sudden disappearance of consumer protection priorities from the administration's financial stability reports. What followed was a masterclass in evasion and condescension, with a Treasury Secretary who literally couldn't be bothered to answer whether AI explainability in credit decisions is even a concern worth having. Mind you, this is the guy Trump put in charge of the entire U.S. Treasury, the same guy who's supposed to be protecting American consumers from financial predators. Yet he just told a congressman asking about consumer protections that we don't view it as a priority. Not a priority to explain to people why they're being denied credit. Not a priority to make sure AI isn't discriminating against them. Meanwhile, the same administration dropped over 100 enforcement cases against corporations, conveniently letting big banks and crypto companies off the hook for billions in penalties. As usual, let's watch the video, and I'll give you my take at the end.
This is rule of decorum. And I'd like to remind everybody to respect the 5-minute rule. And having been a witness before Congress before in my executive branch days, it is important to note that our members can spend their 5 minutes and never ask a question or not. It's their 5 minutes. So let's try to be mutually respectful of each other. And I now recognize the gentleman from Massachusetts, the ranking member of our Digital Assets, Financial Technology, and Artificial Intelligence Subcommittee, Mr. Lynch, Massachusetts, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, based on early reports, and this is an analysis done by Public Citizen and subsequent news reports, when the Trump administration came into office, they immediately took steps to either halt, dismiss, or roll back over 100 enforcement actions and investigations against corporations in its first 2 months in office, with a very heavy concentration on financial services, consumer protection, and cryptocurrency, totaling over $3.1 billion in potential penalties avoided. Now, as a member of the Financial Services Oversight Council, is that a concern that you have raised within the council, all these immediate dismissals of cases against financial services firms?
Well, I think the Biden administration had an extinction.
Sir, please be responsive to my question.
I am trying, sir, and this back and forth is just eating your time, that the Biden administration had an extinction policy for crypto assets.
This is when Trump came into office. I'm going to go to the next question because your answers aren't, Mr. Chairman, the answers have to be responsive if we're going to have a serious hearing here.
Well, the questions have to be serious.
Well, those are 100 dismissals of cases that the Trump administration came in and executed in their first weeks in office, like that. All of a sudden, all these crypto cases went away. The SEC was dropping cases. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau dropping cases. And well, sir, look, you're on FSOC with all the heads of these agencies. This should be a serious question to you. Trust should be a serious question and a serious issue for the financial services industry, especially as the Secretary of the Treasury. Well, that's an important. No, this is my time. I haven't asked you any more questions. I haven't asked you any more questions.
It's the gentleman from Massachusetts.
I'm trying to get to my next question.
Could you speak a little louder? I can't hear you.
Yeah. Okay. I might.
Mr. Secretary, let Mr. Lynch proceed with his time. Put 4 seconds back on the clock, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Lynch.
I just want to do a comparison of the FSOC reports. Let's go back to 2024, and then we'll talk about the current report. In the previous report, the members of FSOC expressed serious concerns related to potential risk to financial stability regarding the lack of explainability and high complexity of AI and the approaches that have a potential to heighten financial instability, especially in the areas of bias and discrimination in credit decisions. That was in 2024. Your report in 2025 focuses on removing regulatory impediments. So in 2024, we were concerned about consumer protections, and now, under your leadership, we're concerned with eliminating regulatory impediments. The dangers, and that was a report during a time where the chairman and I were co-chairs of an AI task force. Those dangers haven't gone away in reality. Those dangers are still as severe for the American consumer, but they are absent from FSOC's report. So it's obviously you've eliminated or dropped that priority as an issue for FSOC. So can you explain the change from protecting the consumer and now eliminating regulations?
We are charged with financial stability, and we are focused on leveraging AI strengthen the financial system resilience, but with economic growth and a security lens.
On the issue of explainability, any concern about that in the use of AI in the financial services industry?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
The issue of explainability, how when people apply for credit and are denied, we don't have the ability for AI to explain why they were denied. Is that a concern? I mean, we are talking about the trust within the financial services industry.
It could be a concern, but we don't view it as a priority for financial stability.
That's the truth. That's the truth. Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back. Thank you.
Gentlemen.
Okay, if you're mad right now, you should be. You just watched a Treasury Secretary treat a sitting congressman like he was wasting his time by asking about consumer protections. And here's what Bessent doesn't want you to know. According to Public Citizen's corporate enforcement tracker, the Trump administration canceled or halted enforcement actions against over 100 corporations in its first weeks back in office. As of March 2025, that number had grown to 109 thwarted enforcement actions, representing 1 in 5 prominent cases. These weren't minor infractions. We're talking about $3.1 billion in potential penalties that corporations just gotta skip. And where were most of these cases concentrated? Financial services, consumer protection, and cryptocurrency. You know, the exact areas Lynch was asking about. Let me be specific about what dismissing enforcement cases actually means in practice. The SEC dismissed with prejudice, meaning permanently, its enforcement action against Coinbase, one of the largest crypto exchanges, just 1 month into the Trump administration. According to legal analysis from Gibson Dunn, at least 89 enforcement cases or investigations were halted or dropped in the initial weeks of 2025, with the SEC alone dismissing or pausing close to 60% of crypto-related cases by December 2025. They also dropped cases against Kraken, Binance, Robinhood, and multiple other crypto platforms. The justification? Acting SEC Chairman Mark Ueda said they were exercising discretion to facilitate the Commission's ongoing efforts to reform and renew its regulatory approach to the crypto industry, which is a fancy way of saying we're letting them off the hook as a policy choice. And it gets worse. Remember when Bessent said questions have to be serious? Here's what you need to know about what happened under his watch. A year before this hearing, on January 31st, 2025, Scott Bessent was named acting director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the federal agency whose entire job is protecting consumers from financial predators. According to multiple news reports, on his first day in charge, Bessent immediately sent an internal email ordering CFPB staff to halt all rulemaking, communications, litigation, and enforcement activities. NPR obtained the email. The order sent on February 3, 2025, said staff must immediately cease work on enforcement actions, investigations, and litigation, unless expressly approved by the acting director or required by law. CFPB attorneys were even instructed not to argue in court that same morning. They had to show up at the Fifth Circuit and ask for a pause instead of defending the agency's rules. Bessent served as acting CFPB director for only 1 week before being replaced by Russell Vought on February 7, 2025. But in that week, he set the agency on a path of systematic dismantlement that continued under Vought for the rest of the year. So when Lynch is sitting here in February 2026 asking Bessent about consumer protection priorities, he's questioning the man who, as Treasury Secretary and brief CFPB director, initiated the shutdown of the very agency designed to protect consumers. So let's connect the dots here. Lynch asked about the shift in FSOC reports from 2024 to 2025. In 2024, under the Biden administration, FSOC explicitly warned about potential risks to financial stability regarding the lack of explainability and high complexity of AI, and the potential for bias and discrimination in credit decisions. That language came directly from the Council's concerns about AI systems making lending decisions without being able to explain why someone was denied. The 2025 report repeatedly emphasizes reducing regulatory impediments and undue burdens, and does not mention AI bias or explainability risks that were highlighted in prior years. Now here's the mechanism Lynch was talking about that Bessent dismissed. When you apply for credit, a mortgage, a car loan, a credit card, federal law requires lenders to tell you why you were denied under the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. But with AI-driven lending systems, the algorithm might deny you based on hundreds of variables analyzed in ways that even the lender can't fully explain. The CFPB under Chopra had been working on rules to address this, warning in a 2023 circular that creditors must comply with adverse action requirements, even when complex algorithms make it difficult, if not impossible, to accurately identify the specific reasons for denying credit. Studies show Black and brown borrowers are more than twice as likely to be denied loans than white borrowers, and algorithmic systems can perpetuate or worsen this bias without proper oversight. So when Lynch asked if explainability is a concern for consumer trust, Bessent's answer was, "It could be a concern, but we don't view it as a priority for financial stability." Read that again. The Treasury Secretary doesn't view explaining to people why they're being denied credit as a priority. The guy who initiated the order to stop all CFPB enforcement work doesn't think consumers deserve to know why an algorithm is discriminating against them. And for what? So crypto companies can operate without oversight? So big banks don't have to explain their AI lending decisions? According to the New York Times, by December 2025, the SEC was no longer actively pursuing a single case against a firm with known Trump ties. Public Citizen found that 34 corporations facing federal enforcement collectively gave at least $34 million to Trump's inaugural festivities, and 60 of those enforcement actions have now been dropped or frozen. This is the strategy. Dismantle enforcement, claim you're reducing regulatory burdens, and let corporations write their own rules. Then when a congressman asks you about it, act like his questions aren't serious enough to answer. So what does this mean for you? Here's the personal impact. If you apply for a mortgage and get denied, you might not be told why. If a bank's AI system discriminates against you based on your zip code or your name, there's no longer a functioning CFPB to investigate. The rules that would have capped overdraft fees at $5, saving consumers an estimated $5 billion annually, according to CFPB analysis, suspended. The rule removing medical debt from credit reports, so 15 million people could access credit suspended. It's like if your car insurance company could charge you more but refused to tell you why, then also fired the mechanic who used to check if they were scamming you. And here's the institutional impact. The CFPB has returned over $21 billion to consumers since 2011. Under Director Chopra's tenure alone, it filed 84 enforcement actions, resulting in over $6.2 billion in consumer relief and $3.2 billion in penalties. That agency is now effectively dark. Federal judges have repeatedly blocked attempts to permanently dismantle it, but its day-to-day operations are frozen. When asked how long the stop work order would last, there was no answer. It's indefinite. Historically, we created these agencies after the 2008 financial crisis, specifically because existing regulators had failed to protect consumers. The CFPB was designed to be funded through the Federal Reserve rather than Congress to insulate it from political pressure. And now that design is being attacked because it worked too well. It held corporations accountable when they broke the law. And for what? Bessent's stated reason is financial stability. But here's what he's really prioritizing. $3.1 billion in penalties avoided by corporations, crypto companies getting a free pass on securities violations, and banks operating AI lending systems with zero requirement to explain why they're denying people credit. Meanwhile, the guy who spent decades as a hedge fund manager who owned over $50 million in 3 separate S&P 500 ETFs, according to his financial disclosures, is now in charge of both Treasury for 1 week, was in charge of the Consumer Protection Bureau, and he's decided consumer trust could be a concern but isn't a priority. The same guy who made $1 billion betting against the British pound in 1992 working for George Soros wants you to trust that deregulation is good for working families. Where things stand now. According to Public Citizen's January 2026 update, the Trump administration has canceled 145 enforcement actions against 153 corporations, with an additional 14 frozen, 159 total enforcement actions halted. At least 18 corporations avoided $3.1 billion in penalties. 1/3 of those cases were DOJ investigations, and nearly another third were CFPB actions. Consumer protection enforcement specifically has suffered the most, with 40% of canceled or frozen cases involving consumer protection violations. But here's what this really reveals. When Bessent said consumer trust isn't a priority for financial stability, he wasn't misspeaking. He was telling you exactly what this administration values. Not whether you can trust your bank, not whether AI systems discriminate against you, not whether you deserve to know why you were denied credit. What matters is making sure corporations face fewer consequences, fewer rules, and less accountability. And when a congressman asks about it, you treat the question itself as if it's not serious. Because in their world, the only serious question is how quickly they can dismantle the protections that took a financial crisis to build. And if you can't get a straight answer about why an algorithm denied your loan application, well, they don't view that as a priority. If you found this breakdown helpful, tap like so more people see it and stay informed. Share this with friends and family who deserve to know how these policies affect their wallets and their rights. Drop a comment below with your thoughts or questions, and don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe so you never miss the next update.